That's why, for me, I feel that exceptional leaders make the chair. It's not the chair that makes exceptional leaders. Exceptional leaders might be ruffling a few feathers now, but are born, for me, are not made. He said success is about managing to go from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm.
I love that. He's legendary.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I think it just puts a tinge of humor, and it's true.
What do you think your purpose in life is? Hi everyone, I've got a small favor to ask. I know that many of you have been watching these conversations over the past couple of years with people who inspire. It would mean a lot to us and it would help us continue to have these conversations if you would just subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Sherry, welcome.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. It's such a pleasure to have you. Before we start, I never do this, but before we start, I'd like to address the elephant in the room, which is, why have I invited Sherry Singh on the podcast? I thought about it, and I think when someone is somewhat of a public figure, is very much in the headlines, many headlines, people tend to forget that behind all of this noise, I call it noise, is a real human being with a family, with a story, hopes and dreams, fears, and perhaps someone that might not have wanted to be so in the limelight as they were. So I guess on some level I wanted people to understand the man behind the limelight, hence my invitation to you. So thank you for accepting.
Thank you. Pleasure's mine.
One of the things that first struck me when I first met you was your humility and your ability to listen. And I think in today's professional and personal world, these are qualities that are underrated, rare, and that should be encouraged in every leader. And we're going to start the podcast with leadership. You've had corporate roles before, you've founded your own businesses before and sold them. So I guess all this intro to ask you my first question, which is, do you agree with me that these are essential qualities of a leader? And or what qualities do you think a leader should have?
Right. Yes, definitely these are essential qualities, and I don't know if I have them, but definitely these are essential qualities. The way, concepts like leadership defined in so many ways. I mean, you get so many definitions and people try to explain them in academic ways. So I'm going to give you my version of how I see things.
Sure.
I've never thought about leadership. I was thinking about whether, I have read something about leadership, and actually I haven't. I've read about business, I've read about investing, I've read about a lot of things that are of interest to me, but never of leadership. So for me, leadership has always, since I was very young, from a sports perspective, from a school perspective, to bigger roles in society. For me, first it was instinctive, but also I think it was to show the way, which if it feels natural to you, your role as a leader is to show the way to people and to get them all to achieve something. It's like the captain of a team. So when, again, I was in school, so let's say if I was the captain of the class football team, so I would have players and friends who are obviously more skilled, and some obviously friends are less skilled. And actually, those who were less skilled, they were more interested in studies, and actually they were brilliant at studies. So football was not really their game. But then what I found was that actually everyone has an ability, and if we can all play together, actually it becomes magic. So it's not so much about, only having skilled players with you. It's about whoever is with you, you take out the best out of them. So you would place them in positions and motivate them instead of shouting at them and things like that. So at very early, I learned that, the best way to get the best out of people is in a soft way. With honey, you attract more than with vinegar. So you need to be humble.
So more carrot than stick.
Absolutely. Because I think that people get motivated longer when they feel good, basically. So the qualities of a leader, humility, yes. There are some other qualities that are coming to my mind, which I feel perhaps not as evident. So there are normal leadership roles like, you get a position and then because of that position, you're a leader. But if I have to give a little bit of my insight is who are exceptional leaders? What qualities do you see in an exceptional leader? For me, an exceptional leader is a visionary leader, a leader that in any position, be it a football team, be it as a CEO, as a prime minister, anything, first of all, has got to be visionary. When I say visionary, means must want something for the team. And
That goes beyond himself or herself.
absolutely. And that's why, for me, I feel that exceptional leaders make the chair. It's not the chair that makes exceptional leaders. So it's not that you put a person in a chair and you give them a business card that they become excellent at it. I think real exceptional leadership is visionary in its approach. It's really that one person wanting things that are good and big for the team, for something bigger than the person themselves. So I think this is one thing that I would qualify as the quality of a leader. The second I would qualify probably in today's context is guts. I've actually seen very few leaders having the guts to do what they should be doing. What I've seen is that there seems to be because of so much information and you can find information quickly, and because of lack of confidence, maybe, I don't know, I see that leaders are not taking decisions. They are waiting for perfect information. But then if we have perfect information, why do we need the leaders? So you must be able to act even in imperfect information situations. If you've got everything, AI can get you a lot of things now. So I think the guts to act comes from conviction. If you're convinced that you're doing the right thing and with some experience, and so you must know that even in imperfect information, you can move. But I see this in political leaders, I see this in business leaders, and generally, I think that people are not moving. There's a little bit of risk to be taken as a leader. That's fine. So that's the second thing.
Sorry, before you move on to the next thing, so would you say it's because they're guided by fear? Why are they not acting?
I'm not sure whether they're guided by fear. I think our education system and the way that we brought up, we're quite safe in safe zones nowadays. I think that there's not enough influence in terms of those who teach us, or enough situations to put us in these positions where hard decisions need to be taken. So we get in comfort zones. So we wait for everything to be perfect. We're not risk takers. So I think it needs to be inculcated also. Some might have it instinctively in these exceptional leaders. That's why I said exceptional leaders, for me, might be ruffling a few feathers now, but are born. For me, are not made.
So interesting that you say that. I do apologize for interrupting, but I think that what you're saying is so interesting, because when I first launched the podcast, one of my first series, I was organizing in terms of series at the time, and one of the first series was a leadership series where I had all sorts of people from the corporate world. And I'm trying to think back, and I think all bar none said that a leader is made rather than a leader is born. So I think that's why I find so interesting that you say that. So in your view and your experience, do you think it's nature rather than nurture? Or do you think you have that rough diamond that that has this little je ne sais quoi?
Even on a philosophical level, I think that first of all, we are all born to do different things, not the same things. And that's why we need each other. Having said that, and that's why even in animal kingdom, even in humans, I think that exceptional leaders are born, not made. There's a lot of things that come instinctively to an exceptional leader that through studies you can't really necessarily grasp. So it's not by reading something that you're going to become. It applies to everything, even being a good lawyer or an accountant for that matter. So we all read the same books, but some excel instinctively because they're good at it. So if I had to be a plumber, I would try to be a really good plumber if I'm good at it. I think we're moving away from that. Everybody wants to be a manager. Everybody wants to be a CEO, wants to be this. I don't think everybody is made for the same thing. And that's why we don't have a sense of fulfillment often in society, because we're not doing the things that we are meant to do. It's true also that you require opportunity and also a lot of introspection to really discover what you what you're really good at. But I think that definitely, my conviction is that great leaders are born, definitely not made. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean that in leadership positions, somebody can't get into a leadership position. I think definitely with instructing themselves, reading, practicing, again, a lot of introspection, of course, you will progress to be a better leader. But that's why I made the distinction between exceptional leaders and leaders. That means people in leadership positions. It's not to look down upon anyone. It's just that I think that different people are made for different things. If you ask me to do something quite technical or manual by nature, I can say the difference between me and my brother, for example. So my brother can build up a motorcycle and I can't. So I think he's really skilled at that, and he's got a sense of detail which is just amazing. But maybe I do certain other things. So I think each one is born in a certain way. So for leadership, like I said, I think this guts thing, disrupting things just because we are convinced we need to go out and do things. And we're talking about the 0.1% in the world, or the 1% if you wish. 0.1 or 1 doesn't matter. But what I mean is exceptional leaders are far and few. But they're willing to take risks. They're willing to go the distance. And that's why I mentioned guts. I would also mention, very importantly, exceptional leaders. People want to follow them, not have to follow them. So if you've got a position, people have to follow you. But even if you don't have a position, or you have a position, people wanting to follow is where there's an exceptional leader. Because the leader walks the talk, because the leader also cares for the people, also fights for the people. So I think the third element of an exceptional leader is, or a naturally born leader, is that people want to follow them because they walk the talk. The confidence, real leadership you will see, which I'm sure you do see, whether in your domain of work or elsewhere, you feel that presence. You feel that presence. A real leader comes in, you feel the presence. A real leader doesn't have to say, I'm so and so. You feel the presence. So I think that's very important. People must want to follow them. I'm just thinking maybe a couple of things more that come to my mind, given the context as well, generally of business and life today where it's reached. I think that speed is important in terms of decision nowadays for leaders. Again, how do you get speed and why do you need speed?
How do you balance speed and impulse though? Because you don't want a leader taking rash decisions. It's a tricky one.
Well, speed is relative, of course. So speed doesn't mean that you rush, but speed does mean that you've got a shelf life, a time frame in which the decision makes sense, or taking a decision makes sense. If not, I think given the pace at which the world is moving, if you don't take decisions now, or within a specified time frame, you lose the benefit, the full extent of the benefit of the decision. Or you might just miss the train altogether. An example would be you're in law and you've got a successful business, and when you look at, for example, technology, where it's going, and AI, so you can decide today to say, okay, let me dabble in it and see where it's going, or you can just ignore it for the next 10 years and slightly be behind in the race in 10 years' time. So you can decide. So there are so many decisions, even small decisions. I think that in wanting to be perfect in their decision, leaders lose the element of speed. And I have rarely seen examples. They do exist, obviously. Not all decisions require speed. But generally speaking, the time to act is the time to act. So we have to move. A decision also is in two parts. So one is the fact that you decide to take a path, and that requires a little bit of thinking.
Yeah.
And then the execution can take time, that's fine. But you still need to take that decision. So you can't ponder too long, be it politically, be it in business nowadays. Generally speaking, I find that decisions are too far. If you look at countries, all government, most government, it's amazing. How can you work at these speeds? I'm not talking about our government in Mauritius. I'm talking generally.
Yeah.
So the whole system...
Except Trump. He's
Yes.
maybe the exception in terms of speed.
Definitely. He's really fast. So I think speed is important for me nowadays to turn things around, especially given the Mauritian context. I think we're behind in so many domains. I think speed is important. Lastly is just, to get speed is the team. You need to build yourself to have, because how do you gain speed? First is conviction. You've got some experience and listen. and not scared of making mistakes. Mistakes happen, it's okay.
Yeah.
But we move forward. Rather move 10 steps forward, okay, two were not the best decisions,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we have taken 8 decisions that are in the right direction. But then you have to have a team. And on this one, and I'll probably end on this one in terms of leadership, my thought is that one more thing that I've seen leaders are not doing is to understand, to have the maturity to understand that you need different strokes for different folk. So it's not the same type of management with all. With somebody who is more creative, for example, you need to give a little bit more freedom, and they want to take responsibilities. You give them the freedom. You take care of the output, make sure that they get the result that they want, but then you must give them the freedom to act because their level of skill set is higher. So this is one. Second is, let's say somebody who doesn't want to take risks. Just tell them what to do, and that's fine.
Right.
Then you have to be more directive, so give them more explicit instructions. And lastly, there's sometimes as a leader, it's not going to sound nice, but you need to be autocratic. I'll give an example. If you have a fire in your home, you're not going to ask your children and your husband and everybody to come and say, okay, let's raise hands. Do we take this door out or this window? Which one?
Yeah.
Can we all decide which one we want? It's not like ordering food from outside,
Sure.
where each one has a say in the decision.
Yeah.
You got to fight. Listen, this is the door. I want you to get out of this door. So these are more situations where there's some form of panic that demands it.
Yeah.
So these are my thoughts about perhaps today's context.
2 sub-questions, actually
Please.
3, but I'll try to remember them. My first question was if we take the context out of Mauritius, because it's a very small island, I don't want to kind of, pinpoint to anyone. Outside of Mauritius, is there a leader in any field, be it political, business, religious, is there a leader that you think, for you personally, has ticked all these boxes that you have mentioned throughout time?
Yes. I'll start one, which is, for me, he's an inspiration. It might seem cliche, but I really genuinely love him. It's Nelson Mandela. So from a political perspective, I would choose him as number one. Because I think, again, you see, the odds were not in his favor. And yet he's risen to be one of the greatest leaders in this world. And when you see his responses and the way he replies, showing force yet diplomacy, I think is just amazing. So he's one leader in the political field. If I had to choose in the business field, I love Jack Ma, who founded Alibaba.
Yes.
Again, why? Because he was actually a teacher. And you can learn so much from what he says because he says it in such simple ways. And he says that, listen, I'm not the cleverest, but I do surround myself with the ones. So he gives so much practical advice, and he's built one of the biggest companies, which has a worldwide impact.
And he was, if I'm not mistaken, he was rejected from so many traditional universities because he didn't tick the boxes that society wanted him to tick, and yet he went on to be an amazing entrepreneur.
Absolutely. So for me, Jack Ma, I've got quite a few nowadays. However, sometimes they're not setting the right example, so
Sure.
I want to avoid those, but I will stick to those as an example.
No, wonderful. So my second question related to that is, you mentioned mistakes. And this is something that I have mentioned on several podcasts, because this is something I personally feel very strongly about. I think society, not just Mauritius, society globally, have taught us to fear what I call failure. It's not really failure, but to fear failure. And that's why I asked you about fear earlier. So because of that, we are afraid to make mistakes, and we think it's a bad thing when we make mistakes. And sometimes that prevents us from moving forward because we don't want to make any mistakes. Have you encountered a professional challenge, which was a setback? Not necessarily a mistake, but which was a huge setback. And what has it taught you in terms of growth and leadership?
Right. So I've always been fond of winning, which means that I never used to accept failure as such.
Sure.
So I have a way of tricking my mind so that I think that,
you're always winning.
so that okay, if I failed in something, I said, okay, it's a learning. I've learned something, and what do I do now to turn this into a success? So I do have if I can think of my first business actually was that situation. So I, together with my wife, we created back in 2003, I think, or 2004, we created the first digital signage company in the Indian Ocean. So basically, it's advertising displays in supermarkets, and we would go down and stuff like that. So I put this all together, and I'm not a technical person, but and there was not so much YouTube. There was, but I mean,
Not to
it
the
was not,
extent
yeah,
there is
not the
now.
amount of content that you have today. So I still read a lot, and I said, okay, if we do this, it'd be great. And I obviously, when I went into business, was not ideal because I left the company I was working for, and so did my wife. So we both left. So we were living on credit cards for 1.5, 2 years,
Wow.
and it was really tough. And everything I had, so I put into the business. And once we had launched, and I had a big launch, and everything, it was very nice, and the orders were not coming in. Then you start learning what real business is about. So it's not about you having the best product. It's not about you being the cleverest, not the smartest, or it's not about these things. I think contacts matter a lot. And I didn't have many contacts at that particular point in time. And advertising sort of advertisers. So, and plus they're competitors. So I even offered the space for free to one of the big groups who advertising some FMCG products. So I see, if you see this, then you're going to see, yeah, okay, if they're putting it, then we can put it as well.
And they refused.
They refused free. So then you understand, okay, it's slightly more complex than I thought. So started losing money very fast, and actually came to a point where basically the company was now ready to go bankrupt. And that's the first company. So then I thought to myself, and I said, okay, this is bad. So if I didn't think it was a failure. I just said, okay, this is really bad. And then I used to read a lot of books, and I said, okay, Richard Branson has failed, and this one has failed, and that one has failed. So what? It's my first business. I'll do something else.
I'm an entrepreneur.
Exactly. So it's good. It's all right. And then what I did was I started pitching the idea of the potential of the company to a few people that I knew. So at that time, it was the BI group. So I pitched it to them, and there was somebody that I knew from the Sentinel group, l'Express group. And I said, listen, do you want to, because this is a future of advertising and this and that. And both said, you know what, we want to buy your company. One said, we want you on board because you know what this business is about. And the other one said, we don't want you at all. I said, it doesn't matter as long as, somebody...
You're not going to be bankrupt anymore. So you can pay off your credit cards.
Exactly. And then I started reading very, very quickly about how to pitch a business and how to structure, how to sell, etc. And unfortunately, it did work. The Lord was with us. And I still remember we sold the business.
So which route did you take? The one who wanted you or the one who didn't need you?
No, actually the one who made the offer first, which was Le Sentinel, the group Sentinel. Okay. They made the offer. They didn't want me. So that's fine. I think they were right.
No grudges.
I think they were right. So yeah. And then my wife and I each got it, because we were 50-50 partners, 50%. So each got a check for around 1.1 million. Oh, wow. And I felt like a millionaire, because it was the first check.
Well, technically,
of course, we had a few debts to pay with that, but still, it was yours. Yeah. So I turned a failure into something which actually became a success for us. It gave me so much confidence that you can't imagine.
Really?
A lot of learning and a lot of confidence. Then it's as if riding a bicycle and falling down, and now I was no longer afraid. I had hit rock bottom, the banks, these, that, creditors, everyone, sort of. So once you learn how to deal with it, I said, okay.
The only way is up.
Yeah, exactly. So I think failure is part of success. And I think the word itself sometimes hampers people. The way we use words sometimes.
Yes.
So it has an emotional feel.
It has a negative connotation to it.
Absolutely, but also a paralyzing connotation. Just the power of words. If I tell you, for example, let's say with our kids, let's say they've done something which is we slightly sort of not happy with it, and we say, I'm really angry. Or you say something else like, I'm not very pleased with what you've done. It has two different effects.
Right.
Anger has connotations of fury, it's really... Yeah. So I think words matter. So failure, actually, the way I view it is just a delayed success. It's just delayed gratification, All right. And even philosophically, failures are meant to teach us, even spiritually. So I think failure is just, because success is what? Getting what you want. Yes. You wanted something, and you're successful. You achieved your goal. But then what is failure? You've not yet achieved your goal. Not yet.
I love that. It's so true. And I blame, the societal conditioning as well, because, we've been I think it's slightly changed now, but I grew up and you grew up in a time where, at 10 years old, 11 years old, I'm thinking of my children who are around that age, you're taught to do an exam and you'll be ranked and people will judge you on that and people will announce your name on the radio. And if you don't meet that, then that means you're a failure. I think things have slightly changed now. There are still a lot of things to improve in our education system, but I think at least the whole ranking thing at CPE has changed. We do still have the scholarships, but it's that connotation, and things that happen in childhood can mark you for life.
Absolutely. And that's why reading is important, because now there's podcasts. So podcasts are interesting
exactly.
because you can learn from them in an interesting way. So, I mean, for people, because we need to visualize. So somebody says, okay, I've failed. First of all, a failure looks much bigger in the moment. While time goes by, you say, oh, really? I mean, come on, I learned from it. Hey, look where I am today. So failure is contextual. It feels much more intense.
Yes.
But also, I think very important that a failure is not a full stop. The only way you can fail is that you stop. You stop trying. You can't fail otherwise. So it's more of a pit stop. It's like in a Formula One racing. So you have to come and refuel. And then they tell you they adjust the strategy, and then you go back again. And I think that's the spirit that we need to take failures. And incidentally, I'm not too much of a quote person and stuff, but there are a few quotes that I really love. And maybe I know only 4 or 5, but they matter to me.
Yeah.
So one of the quotes that I love and which are always with me is on failure, because I found it to be very interesting.
Okay.
So I'm not mistaken, Winston Churchill said that, Sir Winston Churchill. So he said, success is about managing to go from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm.
I love that. He's legendary.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I think it just puts a tinge of humor, and it's true. It's somebody who's stubborn and goes on from failure to failure, doesn't give up.
Yeah.
And again, famous examples like the light bulb and KFC, Colonel Sanders, everyone fails. Donald Trump, the US president, he's gone bankrupt many times. He's the president of the US and of the richest person. So
people tend to forget that. You mentioned Winston Churchill. I'm a huge fan, and although I got some hate mail once for featuring someone who admires him, because anyway, it's a controversial figure, but I think he was a great wartime leader, and
Absolutely.
I think the reason he was a great wartime leader is that he was not afraid of failure.
Yes.
And he should be on that list of the boxes that the qualities that you mentioned earlier, because he was unafraid to take risks.
Yes.
Can't remember what your first one. He had guts. He had an ability. He was very eloquent and he wrote extremely well. He had an ability to convey a message where people would listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And all the great leaders that are known to be great leaders, I'm not judging their actions and morality right now. I'm just saying they're great leaders. Margaret Thatcher, Abraham Lincoln, Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, there's so many great leaders. Even those who won wars and we don't like them because of what they've done. But if we have to analyze it clinically, which means they still had leadership skills. Had they used it for a productive purpose, it would have been something else.
Sure.
On the basis of their leadership skills, you must still admire how many people followed them. So you're right. For me, irrespective of Sir Winston Churchill's deficiencies and even today's leaders' deficiencies, I think we learn from everyone. And those who really make a difference have got certain qualities. And risk-taking is definitely one of them.
Again, I mean, linking to the leaders that we mentioned, I've been fascinated recently with, since the podcast, with communication. And I think it's an art, there are TED Talks on the topic, etc. But to be able, words are words. Words are important, but words are words. You can have two people reading the same script.
Yes.
One inspires and the other falls flat. So how important do you think communication is, and more precisely, how to communicate? How does someone communicate in a way that people will listen?
Right. First part of the question, so is communication important? For me, for you to be successful in life at anything, the basis is human relationships, be it business, your personal life, everything. And it relies so much on communication. So much on communication that it's incredible. So let me try to break it down a little bit before I give an example. So first of all, we must understand that communication in a very basic sense means that I have a message that I need to give, and it has to come to you for you to be able to decode it and understand it.
Sure.
And that's the basis. So, and of course, it has a channel in between, so the medium through which you're communicating. So, before going into before anybody analyzes in a very complex way, if I succeed, let's say you talk German and I speak Creole and we don't understand each other. However, we still manage to communicate. And actually, you see this in Canton Fair when you go to China, you see these other places. Sometimes you don't know the language, but how do you get your message across? Body language. By the way that you're acting and doing, I think a lot of communication happens and the other person understands. Then you know you're successful. Now, why is it important? It's important is because if you need to get anything done, or if you need people to understand you, you must be able to pass your message. You must be able to have your message be delivered in a way that is intended. Let me make it slightly more practical. Let me first use an example, how much communication is important. One example that stuck in my mind again is one of my favorite books, in which by Anthony Robbins. It's called Awaken the Giant Within, in which he talks about communication, the power of words. And one example he uses is there's a couple. And one day they have a fight. When they have a fight, they just got married and they have a fight. And during the fight, the tone of the husband went up. And the lady, she left the room. And each one went even more angry because, the situation was such that the husband is still talking, saying, "Why are you leaving when I'm still talking to you?" And that lady, she left and without saying anything. Next day, fortunately, it was a young couple, so they just got married, so they make up very quickly. And then they started understanding what happened. So when they started talking, so the husband says, "Why did you walk off? I was still talking to you. I've been taught and brought up to say that if there's a problem, we resolve it here. It doesn't matter if I'm raising my voice. I don't intend to be disrespectful. It's just that I'm animated because I'm angry, and we sort it out here and now." The lady said, "But I've been brought up that if you raise your voice, I walk away to avoid a conflict." So both were right.
But they were speaking different languages.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the communication, that means one's message did not reach the other, although both intents were right. So in a practical terms, first of all, communication it's pervasive, it's everywhere. Whoever you're talking to, from the kids to everything. And perhaps from my perspective, in terms of communication, what can help people understand how to communicate better, without any doubt, most of us, I'm guilty of it, everybody would be guilty of it, is that since we know things, we want to download what we know.
Yes.
We forget that there's an audience. We forget that how will the other person digest it? And actually, instinctively, we have that. Because how do we talk differently to our children? Doesn't our tone change? The words change? And to our loved ones? You don't call and say, let's say in office, you're very professional. "Hello, yes, talking, yes." And then, "Hello, yeah." I would use another example, but it would not be appropriate. So what I mean to say is that instinctively, we know how to communicate. But because of the world, because we put on different hats, sometimes we forget. Most PowerPoint presentations I've seen in corporate settings are disastrous. Just because
they're not tailored to the audience.
And then there are simple ways to know how you can communicate. First, know your audience. I know this is everywhere, written everywhere, but when I'm saying know your audience, what does it mean? Who you're talking to, and put yourself in their shoes. If I were in their place, do you think I would want to listen to 1 hour of technical jargon, 1 hour of technical jargon? Maybe a few seconds, not an hour of technical. Oh yeah, a story, I'd love to. And that's why we watch series and Netflix and everything, stories. Yes. So knowing the audience and the language that you need to use for that audience, I actually find it disrespectful if the audience will not understand what you're saying. So we just want to download, we forget that what we have to say has to be adapted to the audience, and the way we deliver it also has to adapt. So first is know who you're talking to. Second, listen. I'm telling you, the best communicators are the ones who talk the least.
I 100% agree with you. I'm not going to give you any examples, but I'm confronted on a daily basis people just love the sound of their own voice, and I think they
Yes.
forget that actually, you read these books and they tell you that some of the best leaders are the ones who speak last. They let
Yes.
everyone in the room talk, and then they
Yes.
speak last.
Absolutely. And then deliver in a way which is interesting for the listener. Again, it's not about techniques, about reading these techniques. Just put yourself in the shoes. Look at society today. Our attention span has gone. I mean, it's down to probably seconds now.
Yes.
So we've gone to, let's say, a bigger attention span, speeches, to YouTube, to Facebook, to TikTok,
And now we have shorts.
and you have shorts.
Yes.
And what you're doing is flipping. You don't even listen. So if the first few seconds don't interest the person, they flip
You're gonna lose
and
them.
something else. So the best speeches in the world are considered to be speeches with around 7 minutes. But if you look at the average speeches of politicians, 45 minutes to 1 hour and something. so they're not, it's not tailored to the audience. And that's why we're losing audiences in politics, for example, even in religion. Again, I think that it has to be in shorts. It has to be TikTok ready. And then it will be more palatable. Small bites.
Do you think that's a good thing, though, in terms of, not as regards communication for communication's sake, but talking about technology, and this is a thing that keeps coming back on the podcast as well, is that I think it's so sad, and maybe it's because I'm resisting change. It's so sad that, we grew up in an era where we used to devour books, and now, as you said, our attention span has been reduced to seconds. Do you think humanity is running the risk of losing itself? This is more of a spiritual question, but yeah, because we cannot focus on anything anymore for any meaningful length of time.
Simple answer, yes. I think we are losing it. I think nothing can replace a book. And I can say why. Actually, why a video is more interesting than a book, or actually gets you hooked more, not that it's more interesting, sorry, it gets you hooked more, is because there are more senses involved and less brain power involved.
Right.
So a book, however, jogs your imagination. You visualize things. There are connections that your brain makes that is not present in a video. I'll take another example in a more corporate setting at Mauritius Telecom. So Mauritius Telecom, when I was working there, so obviously it's the forefront of technology, and we could have smart boards and this and that. I put everything away in our boardroom, our corporate boardroom, and I said, whiteboard. And what was the habit was that obviously they're all very qualified and they come, and the normal way of brainstorming was that everybody comes with their PowerPoint and actually have 5 slides that they've prepared, and basically they want to download what they want to download. And I was never like that. I was always disruptive. So I said, listen, no PowerPoints, because the moment you put something there, you're analyzing this. Whereas if the board is clean, you're thinking. So when they're giving, first of all, you have to grasp what you know, so you must be able to explain. Second is, it triggers questions. But why this? Whereas you, in a PowerPoint, you're correcting what's there. You're trying to correct. So let me put it another way. Let's say if somebody brings a house to you, a design of a house, you want to build a house, and the architect has brought a design, and you don't really like the design, but you're changing the windows, and you're changing the door, and you're changing the carpet, and then you're changing the furniture, but you don't like the house. The point is, you don't like the design of the house. You wanted something like this, and it's something like that. So you need an open canvas, a clear canvas to think. So yes, I think we're losing our skills of creativity, critical thinking, making connections that happen only in imagination. And that's how you get creative.
And if I may, I think
Yeah,
I would
please.
be so bold as to say that what would, in the future, this is just my theory, in the future, what would distinguish a great leader from a good leader, let's put the visionary leader on one side, because I think that, as you said, they're far and few between, but difference between a great leader and a good leader is that the great leader will have imagination, will allow himself or herself to let the creative juices flowing, whereas the good leader will follow the corporate rule book or follow what's trendy and just abide by that.
Yes. So basically, it's only 2 categories right now. It's basically what you said as an excellent leader is actually the visionary leader, because they're creating creativity. Visionary means it automatically creates humility as well. Is that you allow participation, because your intent is not what you want. Your intent is the is whatever it needs to be achieved collectively. And that's why you're a leader. And the other one is just someone in a leadership position. Because following a corporate rule book, you don't need a leader.
Sure.
You need a manager, an excellent manager, all right? But you don't need a leader. But what are you leading? What are you leading? You're not getting people. Leading automatically, like I said, means getting people to do their best, to be their best, irrespective of their skill level. And for that, that's an excellent leader. So even if we don't call them a visual leader, that's an excellent leader.
Yeah.
In any domain. And always, also sometimes we think that, okay, leaders are only in, because of the country leaders or business leaders. No, they're leaders everywhere in social life. And people following them, and they're helping people, and they're doing amazing stuff, despite not sometimes having the education or the resources. I think these are exceptional leaders. Sports people. And you find exceptional sports people leading teams in such difficult circumstances. So I think there's exceptional leaders, if I don't call them visionary, the exceptional leaders everywhere. And the others are just in a leadership position.
Right. Yeah.
They because if you don't go beyond, then you're not leading. Leading automatically has an element of risk. Even you said spiritually. Look, if you look at our scriptures, any scriptures in any faith,
Yes. It's a common thread.
it's a common thread.
Yeah.
They showed the way. They led. There was risk involved. There was so much opposition in whatever they were doing, and hence, but they kept their path because they believed, and that's why I talked about conviction. They had a conviction. But they took people together. They didn't just dictate.
Yeah.
They took people together. The one who dictates is not a leader, he's a dictator.
Yes, yeah. I fully appreciate that they're not democracies, and I'll probably receive some more hate mail because of that. But I'll also like to take the example of, because I go there quite often, well, on transit often, the example of Dubai. I think he's a visionary leader.
Absolutely.
I have seen pictures of Dubai in the 1970s.
Yes.
We had our independence before that. In the 70s, it was just the desert.
Absolutely.
I visited the Museum of the Future recently, and I can see vision in that. Whether, you know, the democracy thing is a separate issue, don't want to get political. I would say suggest the same thing of Lee Kuan Yew.
Yes.
Mauritius
Absolutely.
and Singapore obtained independence around the same time.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think that we should also learn to suspend judgment.
Yes.
Because it's easy to, because we are a democracy, because the Western world is a democracy, which sometimes I find very hypocritical, but we tend to say, well, these don't count because they're not democracies. But I think there's a lot to be learned.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Actually, I inspire myself a lot when I think about the country from Lee Kuan Yew. And even if he's an overused example, for me, he's always a fresh example because he was so pragmatic when there was nothing. And we look at Dubai as well. The leader of Dubai, I mean, you can do things, but you do things beautifully and to the scale that you've done and what is not there yet. And actually, one of the places before, let's say 10 years back, I was not really fond of Dubai necessarily. There was, let's say, a little bit of pizzazz missing. But today, if you ask me, I would love to live in Dubai, for example, because I think in every aspect of development, like you said, leaving political issues aside, I think they're doing so amazingly well. And what do? First, a vision, surround them by exceptional people. This is what Lee Kuan Yew did as well. Asking yourself simple questions. This is where we want to go.
Yeah.
How do we get there? And if you don't know how to do it, you get people who know how to do it. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
So definitely leaders that I admire as well.
So what is from all of this, if I may now ask you, what is your leadership style?
For me, I think it's a mix. I am instinctive as a leader. I need passion. I need to believe in something, and then it becomes automatic. I don't think about leading. It's just that I'm on a mission, and hopefully people sort of, if I'm given a mission or I have a mission, hopefully they want to follow.
Yeah.
And then we'll try. But it has happened. I think the culmination, the apex or summum of my let's say professional career was Mauritius Telecom, definitely. I think it'll be hard to beat that professionally. Business is otherwise, but let's say where there's people involved, around 2,500 people. And
what did it bring you personally as a character building period of your life? What growth did it bring you personally?
I think, first of all, I got to apply everything that I knew how to do. I got to apply it on a large scale. And I, to be very honest, never had, because I was more focused on business and making sure I do something to be able to take care of my family and to protect my family in the future. I never thought about social things, to be very honest. I never thought that, okay, I'm going to do social and this and that. But when I got into Mauritius Telecom and when I saw the impact that I can make, or as if with a team, of course, obviously,
Sure.
when I saw how we can impact lives, I mean, business would not be business today if the Mauritius Telecom team didn't fiber the whole of Mauritius. So I think that the leadership styles, to come back to it, what you were saying, I think it depends on the context, it depends on the people. Sometimes you need to be more directive. Sometimes you need to give a little bit more space, depending on the skill level and of the character of the person. Sometimes you need to be, like I said, autocratic if things are going bad. I'll give you just one example. So I was close to the staff, still am, still feel. I'm not in contact with them, but I still feel.
Still part of the family.
Yeah. And Mauritius was the same also when I went for just a small stint.
Really? I didn't know you were there.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I was for around maybe 2 months, and then the company was going. COVID came, and
Sure.
it had to go into administration. But then I was talking to all the people. So, in a quick way, I'll just explain what happened in Mauritius Telecom. So I went there thinking that maybe they won't like me because I was working for MTEL before. I'm not too sure. I'm young and I'm a political nominee, and I don't know. And for 3 months, I just listened. I went everywhere. I listened to everyone because I had to elicit a strategy, and it's a big company. And in 3 months, I didn't come out publicly to say what I'm going to do, what I'm not going to do. I just listened. And I tried to understand, I understood the relationships, what's happening, where's the business, everything. So after the 3 months, I said, okay, now I know what to do. So there's the business side, what to do, and let's say that's slightly easier.
Right.
Let's say.
How to bring money, you mean?
Yes,
Or, yeah.
yes. How to generate revenue, which are the lines you need to take, and
Yeah.
whatnot, etc.
Okay.
And for example, I said we need to fiber Mauritius in the next 3 years. Why? Because they showed me a PowerPoint presentation and said, we got 300,000 complaints a year, and it's on the downtrend now. I said, I'm sorry. It's
300,000 complaints.
So, and it was
Wow.
under control because it was down from 350,000 or something. So it was on the downward trend. I said, seriously? Are we serious? And then, obviously, you know where the world is going, and you know that you've got a copper network, and you're not gonna be able to reach there. So I asked them. I said, "Can we do this?" No, we can't. I must have got at least 10 no's. Everybody
Before
told
you
me
found
no.
someone who would say yes.
And even when I went to the board, they said, no, why are you fibering the whole island? We fiber where there's money. There's money in Port Louis, there's money in Floréal, there's money in Grand Bay. I said, no, this is about our country. Everything will come to a standstill. And you can't say, you're giving good internet here, not to another Mauritian,
Yeah.
because they live in such and such region. Impossible. And I fought for it, and we won, and we did it. So that's the business side. Now the other side, like I said, was it's a big company. I saw the company to be big, powerful, but slow.
How many employees?
2,500
Okay.
at that time. So it was big and powerful, but slow and
A machine.
machine, laboring machine, and service was, like I said, around 3,000 complaints, manageable. It's okay. That's it. I said, what if we could turn this company and make this company
A
agile?
great place to work.
And a great place to work. And what if, we had passion in this company? So then I decided the biggest strength of Mauritius Telecom, just like Mauritius, is its people. Technology is still there. Anybody can get access to technology. It's how you apply it. It's what you do with it. So then we started rebranding Mauritius Telecom because there was an identity crisis. So what were we? Were we part of Orange or were we Mauritian?
right.
Which one was it?
Right.
And that's their guts, because how do you go against a major partner? But I did.
Were they on board with that?
Oh no. But it would not be diplomatic to talk about it, but I'm telling you, oh my God, the battles that I fought. And I fought alone, in the sense that I didn't let the staff feel it, and I didn't let the board feel it.
You took the heat.
Yeah, I took the heat. I mean, I took big heat. I had to prepare myself for so many things, Anyway, we rebranded, but rebranded was not about the marketing. And this is where everything ties up, leadership, communication, and everything else. It was not about the marketing. That means a brand is a subtotal of of all the assets you have. And the biggest asset that Mauritius Telecom had, like I said, was its people, but also its technology and everything else. So it had to come together. And this is where the team came together, because we had stylists design uniforms, now just simple things. And this is where everything ties up, like I said. When you're designing uniforms, you make a uniform. Nobody likes uniforms. And I thought, how can we make uniforms that people love? And so went to see the ladies and said, okay, had a group of ladies and said, what kind of uniform? One said, we want this kind, I want this, I want this, I want the dress short, I want this. And we made 5, 6. So you can choose basically, or have all 6 if you wish, in terms of design, so that it fits, because some feel more comfortable in certain clothes and some feel more comfortable in other clothes.
Yeah.
And then we designed those uniforms. And
so you got into that level of granularity?
of course, because you can't build amazing companies or teams if you don't go down to a granular level on certain topics. After that, once your team is built, it becomes automatic. But when you're building in the initial, I'll use another example. So out of cost cutting, what they call cost cutting, I went there and I went to an exchange where there were technicians, and my colleagues told me, yeah, but you're coming and saying everybody's promised us, but did you know that they've taken icons out of our cars? And we go to customers and we are sweating and this and that, and it goes on. I said, well, why did they take aircon out of the cars? They said, because it's going to save money and this and that. I said, oh, really? Okay. And I didn't say anything. I went back into office and I called the management meeting. And I called the CFO and everybody else. And I said, listen, apparently there has been, before I came, a cost-cutting exercise where...
No aircon in cars.
Can you tell me why this was done? And they started showing me figures and, this was done. It has saved us so much money. And I told them, I said, okay, if that is so successful a plan, then as from tomorrow, I want you to take out all the aircons in all the management cars. Everyone, because I think it will give more savings, because we pay the fuel, we pay this and pay that. So let's take out all the aircons, including mine. Yeah. They looked at me, they didn't know whether I was joking or not joking. And I said, no, let's take it out.
If it's such a great, efficient measure. Yeah.
So there's a balance. There's a balance to be made. Not everything is about, you get more figures, out of, you actually increase revenue. We became, because of a great team, absolutely amazing team. We got 7 international awards. I got 2 personal awards. We became #1 company. We had not beaten MCB. MCB is a great company. I mean, their profit is our turnover. For Mauritius Telecom, I'm saying.
I'm biased.
So I mean, in terms of a revenue generating company and a bank, etc. So I mean, really, wow. So beating them was really difficult. We beat them in terms of perception, in terms of innovation, #1, in terms of this. So everything starts changing once you have a vision and you manage to get the team motivated towards that vision. It's the same technology today, it's the same people, there might be different motivations today. But generally speaking, this is what I meant. Everything comes together if you understand people and try to get the best out of them.
And you said a word earlier, and I think that kind of you referred to it throughout the podcast so far. I love the concept and I'm fascinated by it, which is strategy. I think there's only so much you can learn in books. People do MBAs and all sorts of things, but I think strategy is probably linked to having vision. And I think you've got to be, maybe you'll disagree with me, I think you've got to be wired in a particular way to be a great strategist. And we've seen, I think the best examples are war generals. The way they not only inspire, but the way they are able to take a step back and look at all the moving parts. But also not only that, they know precisely, okay, if that happens, I'm going to do this, this, or this. But if this happens instead, I just think it's fascinating. I guess my question to you is, do you think it's a skill that can be honed? Or do you think, again, this is something that you're born with?
According to me, again, I think this is what you're born with, but it can be honed to a certain extent, obviously. So, because there are different levels of strategy. So if you're talking about really a strategist by nature and by actions and experience, really a strategist which most probably also assists great leaders or is a leader himself or herself, I think like any other thing. So just like I said, so let's say a cordonnier, there are those who are really skilled and those who can do repairs and can do other things. So there's that category. But then it's also for, let's say, the normal life, for generally speaking, in business and this and that.
Sure.
Strategy, anybody can improve on it, like any other skill. It can be leadership skill also, like I said. Doesn't mean somebody who's not a leader cannot build leadership skills.
Sure.
But to be, like I said, exceptional leader, it has to be predisposition. So strategy is as simple and as complex as this. So strategy automatically means you want to succeed in something, right? You have a goal, something that you need to succeed in. So you have to have a plan. So let's say in battle, so I need to win this battle. So where do you start? How do you think about it for others who are not really reading into strategy? So first you think, okay, you have to know what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, where am I, how much funds, how much resources do I have, who's my competitors, who am I playing against? Because obviously strategy means you're beating someone or some company towards something. So you have to be better at something and to succeed.
Sure.
So you have to be really clinical about that. The more information you have, the better the chances of you thinking now, all right, this is where I am, this is my business, I want to start, let's say, a cosmetics business. Why? Because these are my strengths, I know this, I know this, I know this. What do my competitors know? And then the second part is then you visualize a goal. Okay, so what would success mean to me? It would mean that I've beat the biggest, I've beat L'Oreal.
So you mean by that, if you can dissect it,
Please.
because I think it's fascinating. So if we can just dissect this a little bit, we're talking about strategy and you know where you are, you know where you want to be. When you talk about where you want to be, is it the ultimate end goal, or is it, do you have to think, this is where I want to be in 5 years, this is where I want to be in 7 years? So what do you mean by you know where you want to be?
End goal. It starts with the end goal first. You can put milestones and that's the planning aspect. But pure strategy is first understanding where you are right now and where do you want to be. And then in between comes what it will take
To get there.
to make you win. And then an element of planning comes in. And like you were saying, some things are complex. People are able to, some people are natural at analyzing situations. And obviously that's the kind of brain. But there's always something that somebody can do to try and get better. So you yourself mentioned it while we were talking, is that you must be able to zoom out. So in any situation, actually, it's like a camera. So if you zoom in, you actually see details that you normally can't see easily. But then you lose the big picture. So what I'm saying is you zoom out first, have the big picture in mind first. And then you can start putting interim goals and do your planning and whatnot. But purely as a strategy. So for example, they say sometimes today in corporate world, we say strategic planning. Strategic planning is not strategy. Strategy is, what do I need to do to achieve whatever my goal is? What will need to happen to achieve success? So that's strategy. How to plan it, you might call it strategic planning now. What are the steps? What are the milestones? What resources will you need? And that's the planning aspect. I think the Mauritius Telecom example I used, starting the Mighty brand, I think that would be, the Mighty brand was great at bringing the Mauritian sentiment together because, again, that's an element of strategy. So we have the same technology as our competitors, right? You can do things better, but to a certain extent, which might not be noticeable for the end consumer sometimes. So where do you differentiate? You differentiate in terms of intangibles. This was my strategy. So we do things that, and that's why we did Muga, for example, and it was good for society, it was good for, you create attachment to the Mauritian brand, and at the same time, you're doing good for society. So that was strategy because I needed a differentiator. How you do it, there can be various routes, but at least you need to understand, okay, what do? I need people connected to the brand that goes beyond just reducing price, just competing.
Or wearing
okay, this is 4G,
or...
this is 5G, this is 6G. Okay, that's fine.
Someone else is going to catch up with you.
Somebody else is going to catch up or leapfrog or do whatever.
Yeah.
So it can't be that. You have to have, in any business, you have to have something that is hard to copy. So the intangibles are hard to copy. And that's why when you got a great team, how do you copy that? It's very hard to copy that.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. I love that. And the other question I was going to ask, and I really apologize for all these questions because
No, I'm loving it.
You're saying all these things and it's triggering, my brain is going haywire. So strategy, everything that you've just explained, can you apply that in your personal life as well? So marriage, relationship, friendships, family, would you have the same approach, or do you think it requires the core principles of it? So say we're talking about a relationship or friendship. This is where I want to be. This is what I would like my marriage to look like, my relationship to look like, or my friendship to look like. And this is what I must do to achieve that. Because I don't, the reason I'm asking that question is that I don't think necessarily when we're very good at talking about work and corporate life, but when we look at our own personal life, I think a lot of us just go live on a day-by-day basis without really knowing what they want out of their personal life.
Yes. Okay, it's a hard question.
Yes. I just thought of it.
I'm going to try and do my best. Again, I'm going to answer instinctively to what I think, not even given it a thought, but I personally have not used and would never say to use strategy in terms of relationships. Again, because strategy, which basically means trying to win means against someone. So if someone I love, I'm not trying to win against them. So I have no strategy there. But on every other practical aspect of life, yes. So if I need to, as a family, we need to sort of achieve a level of income, or we need to be able to afford this, or have a house, or, okay, yes, of course it requires strategy. Because let me use an example. Let's say somebody's earning 20,000 rupees a month, or let's say today the minimum salary is more than that, I think so. Okay, let's say 30,000 rupees a month.
Yes.
Okay. However, it's really important for them to have a beautiful house which is, has a view on the sea, let's say. And today it's unaffordable, it's really difficult, and if you go by your salary, it's impossible for you to make it. So this is what you want, and this is where you are. So you need to bridge that gap. So you need a strategy to bridge that gap. What could you do? Well, you could either become so important for your employer that they decide to pay you more, which is difficult, but theoretically true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're so important for them that they decide to pay you more. Second, you do a side business that you say, okay, I'm going to try this so that I have to achieve this level of income and do this. Third, you could buy a lottery and wait and wait forever.
Yeah.
But what I mean to say is you've got a few avenues that you logically have to think that, okay, what will help me or increase my probability to tomorrow be able to do this? So not in relationships, not in anything, I would not use strategy. But to win in something else, yes. I would apply a minimum amount of strategy. A strategy basically, I mean, it's a big word, but basically I would ask myself, okay, what do I need to do? What should happen for me to achieve success, for me to achieve the goal that I want to achieve?
What is success to you?
Success to me is basically achieving what you set out to achieve. So if I want to run 100 meters in 10 seconds, for example, under 10 seconds, success would mean that I run under 10 seconds because I've set myself an unrealistic goal. So I can't run under 10 seconds.
You never know.
But so either the goal is
make some
not right.
special shoes that will allow you to run that fast.
That's true. So it can always be done. Yeah. I believe Tesla is making robots, and lots of robots coming. So success by definition means that you achieve what basically you wanted to achieve. Now, the fact that it is unrealistic or this and that is another matter. It might be realistic or unrealistic. That's for you to gauge. So that is what success is about. The path to success could be paved with, like I said, a few milestones of you falling down and restructuring, but it doesn't matter. There are so many roads that if you had not traveled, you would not have found something else.
True.
So what is success ultimately? So for me, success is not about house or car. This is not success. Maybe for some people it is.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
Yeah.
For me, success was and still is that I have sufficient to provide for my family till the end of our lives, and we're secure in whatever way. So for me, on the material side, that's what success means. All cars have 4 wheels, so it doesn't matter which car. That doesn't mean I don't love cars. I love cars, but this is not a sign of success for me necessarily. Now, success in terms of relationships and family is when you have successful relationships. That means where you're getting more pleasure out of and it's bringing more strength. What I'm talking, I'm
There's
just
more credit than debits.
yes. And actually,
in the
this is
equation.
one of the places. Maybe it fits the example, or maybe it doesn't. But I'll tell you something. Where the leadership, communication, and everything else, I think we as humans, the Lord has given us so much instinct that we don't really have learned to listen to. And that's why spirituality is important, introspection is important. It's important for you to give yourself time to discover yourself, because once you discover yourself, you discover others. How can you be arrogant if you know yourself? Do you like arrogance when somebody is doing with you? You don't. So if you don't, how can you be arrogant? But if you don't know yourself, you'll be arrogant.
I see.
So on instinct, there are situations that add to who you are. That means propel you, give you energy.
Yes.
And these are positive relationships. Assets should bring something, not remove something from you. And it applies to people. So some people say, I don't know whether my relationship is good and this and that, or my friend and this and that. It's very simple. It's very simple. If you spend 1 hour with a person and you go back home
And you're drained.
and you're drained and you're feeling anxious and you're feeling bad and you're feeling so much responsible that it's dragging you down, or you finish that meeting and it can be a stranger, it can be somebody that you know, but you feel invigorated or relaxed and you feel, or you get a lot of energy because it's getting you thinking in new directions. That's a positive relationship. So instinct will tell you which is which. You don't have to wait a whole life to understand that. So it applies. So I think lots of these concepts are inbuilt in us. But it just requires, I think, a little bit of exposure and explaining so that people discover it.
Yeah, and so self-awareness.
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. That's a difficult question, but I've asked it a few times, and it always takes them a bit by surprise. What do you think your purpose in life is?
Yeah, so my purpose in life, I think that I'm still trying to discover my purpose in life. However, I know instinctively what I love to do. So I feel that whatever skills I have been given, I think I need to be able to use it for more than just me or my family. I love building. When I say building, is creating, building. So I like complex issues, trying to help to resolve those complex issues. So I think definitely what will give me pleasure, I don't know whether that's my purpose in life, but what definitely is going to give me pleasure is to try and help on a larger scale, where it requires real, complex thinking and lots of people coming together and us building something really amazing. So I would love to help in that. And that's why I've never been interested in frontline politics, despite whatever my battles have been. Sure. But I've never been interested in frontline politics. I've been interested in helping politics in trying to build something, whatever it might be. You give me any challenge. I'd love to sort of help in sort of solving these issues. This is what would get me excited. So I don't know whether that's my purpose in life. I've never, sometimes you think about it, but you don't really get the time. And all the operational things always sort of, take over.
Get in the way, yeah.
And when you feel that, okay, this is your purpose, and then you get such a beating that you say, really? Was that my purpose?
Not yet, as you said. Yeah. You've got a young child. What Mauritius would you like to see for her in 25 years, 30 years?
I think the Mauritius that I'd like to see is, first of all, where there's security. I think that has become of prime importance. I have a daughter, so that's exponentially more important in my mind. So I think security we have to be a country that is secure for everyone. This is very important. I think there has to be opportunity of growth, because no youngster will stay in the country if there's not opportunity for growth. I'm telling you, whatever the level of education, whatever it is, it's secondary. Everybody must be able to find opportunity. Whether you're 15 or 65, there must be opportunity. So if there's opportunity, then there is a feeling of hope and you want to grow and this and that. Obviously, there are traditional things that people talk about and which are true, like, more equality and this and that. But for me, all these things are mixed into leadership of the country. So all these things follow suit if we are in the right direction. So if we bring everyone together and work towards a Mauritius that is modern, free, secure, able to grow, I think that then children will want to stay. Otherwise, I foresee that not only children, maybe all of us might want to migrate if tomorrow Mauritius is not secure. When you see drugs and this and that, and I know the government is trying hard and this and that, but the point being not government and politics. The point being that the situation is such that I think it's really bad. So I'm a bit worried as a father. This is why I want to help as well in any measure possible. So yeah, we were talking about Dubai earlier. So I feel so excited about Dubai if you look at the TikToks that are coming and stuff like that. So everything is moving. So I'd love Mauritius to move. And we've got so many amazing things. It's probably the only country you go to, Europe, Asia, Africa, and people say, hey, would love to come to your country. That's paradise. So it sells itself. So just imagine the potential.
And I think one of the things that I found so amazing with Mauritians, I mean, we saw that at a certain period last year. We've got the ability, we are so creative. Inherently, I think we're very creative people. It's just that because society perhaps is conditioned in a particular way, this has been stifled to some extent because, you have to go to school, get a good job and, be a lawyer, engineer, doctor, etc. But I think at its core, we're naturally quite funny, very funny and
Yes.
very creative people. And I think this
Absolutely.
is something that should be tapped into.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I said it also, I think in an interview, you see no, not an interview, sorry, it was a press conference that I was talking about Mauritius and what I want to see, what I see as our strengths. And I mentioned what you're saying. And actually that's the seeds of innovation when you got creative. And I think Mauritians are innovators. But what's limiting us beyond people is systems.
Yes.
So we've been used to a system since long. Now, a lot of people talk like this and say, yeah, the system is not good. But I'm not sure whether they understand what is a system, what it means, and how to impact it. So probably that's another discussion. But I just want to say that, we should not stop at the first level of, as a society, to say that, okay, we need to change the system. We need our leaders and everybody else, the public, we all give our ideas what is required. I see a bias in politics in general, with the discussion being skewed to changing this legislation and that legislation. And that's fine, because that's the bedrock.
When we're zooming in.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's not only it. A system is basically a set of interrelated parts, components, which means it can't be related only to law. It's about the people. That means the competence.
Yeah.
The mindset, actually, you can't change mindsets. It's very hard. What you can do is change the system, and the mindset adapts itself.
Right.
And I've done it, so I can say it with confidence. I have done projects that people said it will not work. Incidentally, because I'm proud of it, I'm just mentioning it.
Good.
So again, while I was at Mauritius Telecom, so I really wanted to, as a citizen, I found it frustrating that you go somewhere and make a complaint, and actually, they decide to put it in a drawer. Basically, you won't know. You have no feedback. You don't know when to go back. You don't know what to do. And I find that exasperating.
That's when there were 300,000 complaints a year.
Yes. That was only in Mauritius Telecom.
Yeah.
But just imagine all the sort of municipalities and ministries and everywhere else.
Sure.
So I thought to myself, I said, okay, what can we do? And I got the innovation team of Mauritius Telecom, a great group of young professionals. I'm telling you, one of the best in Mauritius. And we built a platform called the Citizen Unit Portal. So basically what it did was, it could register a complaint anywhere.
Okay.
First of all, it logs it.
Yeah.
Once it logs it, it has basically the name of who logged it, when was it logged. Because of the ID number, basically you know which region the person is, how old they are. Is it a lady? Is it a gentleman? Is it a youngster? What are the problems in the different regions? And it still exists today. And we did it for free for the government. It's called the it's managed by the Citizen Support Unit. So just imagine the Prime Minister, theoretically, if you go to him and say, listen, I made a complaint in the municipality, nothing has been done. He can actually view that complaint, zoom down, see who did what, and where is it stuck?
Wow.
And it's so powerful. Now, who's using that? Who's inputting that? It's all the citizen advice bureaus across Mauritius. Who people initially told me, you can't deal with them. They're in their old mindset. Not true. Not true. It's the way that you deal with them. They are doing a fantastic job. They take complaints whole day. So it's not an easy job. But by making it easier for them, they basically now have analysis and say, listen, in this region, everybody comes and complains about lights. So you can go and see where to put your energy and resources to see how to sort of look at street lights.
And then you've got such a wealth of data that you can then use to change the system should you wish to do so.
It's just amazing. And that's how you impact the system.
Because
you got data, exactly what you're saying. You can actually budget according to the data. You know, you want to please people. If more people are complaining about street lighting, go and fix the street lighting. You understand? You know where the water problems are. So all these things are, for me, there's ways of impacting a system. Mindsets are hard to change.
Sure.
But the mindsets adapt once we do a series of things. Not only, this was not only a use of technology, it was how you take people on board. So the people in the Citizen Advice Bureau, I was CEO at that time, so I could take that decision. They said, but we got less than a megabit connection. How are we going to do this? I said, why don't you upgrade? But you know, we have to put it in the budget. We have to put it in the budget. And so the next budget is going to come and then we're going to get the budget. I said, no, okay, forget it. I took it upon myself as CEO of Mauritius Telecom and I put 100 megabits in all Citizen Advice Bureaus. Because this was for the country. So why not? So these are small actions. I'm not pointing to myself. All I'm saying is that thinking that we can't change is not true. People say, yeah, we criticize people this, but Mauritians vote like this. Okay, let's not talk about politics. But all I'm saying is that you can see that when people need to come together, like in Sherry Singh or COVID for that matter, or Wakasio for that matter. So Mauritians come together. What do we need to do?
But it shouldn't require a crisis.
Exactly.
To get to that point.
Exactly. These crises have shown us that the potential to come together exists. Sherry Singh is not a crisis.
True.
When our singers sing, we don't say he's of this community or she's of that community. We love them for whoever they are. Our artists, our sports people, I mean, we're so proud, you know. So we don't say, oh, he's from this community. Yeah. We don't care from what community.
Never say that, yeah.
So we need to do more things that unite us rather than sort of things that have a tendency to divide.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
That's my thought.
Wholeheartedly agree with you, which leads me to my last question that has nothing to do with whatever we discussed today, but because we're in the season of budgetary consultations, so you have the Prime Minister in front of you and who's saying, hypothetically, I have no knowledge of anything, who says, Sherry, you have one wish for the country and we will put that in the budget. What would it be and why?
All right. Again, a tough question.
Yes, only one though.
I would not give a particular answer in terms of a specific measure. What I would say is a principle. Right now, people need hope. I know it's a difficult budget, extremely difficult budget. It's probably one of the most difficult budgets probably that a government has got. We all wish for the government to be able to pull this off. But most importantly, like I said, is hope. We can take pain, provided we know there's hope in front. So if I had to choose one element, is because I've never been about a particular measure. It's a series, it's an approach. So the approach should be one that gives hope. So if today is difficult, at least we know tomorrow, we're working towards tomorrow, going towards a tomorrow that is going to be better. And if we manage to pull that off, then everybody will be charged, whether it's a business person or it's just somebody who's finding it difficult to live in terms of daily. But it has to give hope.
Thank you so much. So short-term pain for long-term gainers, as we say. I've really enjoyed this conversation and I hope that the audience has been able to glimpse the man behind the headlines. You know, as you know, I don't discuss politics on the podcast, and I think it's really wonderful that you've accepted to come and share your wisdom.
Thank you. And thank you to your team as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.